All right. Now, with that being said, let's turn our attention to a news broadcast today with the author who is now joining us, Matthew Vadum, and his brand new book, Team Jihad. Matthew, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your being with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I've been really enjoying, and you've been hearing me promote your website, right?
Yep.
So here we are on 35 stations live, and I've been reading your book all morning. It's all marked up. We're going to have to get to it because there's more here than I'm going to be able to talk to you about. But fascinating book, Team Jihad, How Sharia Supremacists Collaborate with the Leftists to Destroy the United States. I would like to start first with the chapter that is, just so you know, chapter 6. I want to start with chapter 6, and then we'll work our way back.
Okay.
Care.
What's the subtitle on it? Because
Care, the number one Muslim.
Care.
Yeah,
okay.
The number one Muslim civil rights.
Islamic relations. Got it.
Yes. And the reason I want to ask you about that, Matthew, and I've been reading your stuff at Front Page Mag for a long time. You've been writing over there for a long time, haven't you?
Thank you. Yeah, many years.
And the reason
as a freelancer, I don't actually work at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, though I'd love to.
Well, you do great work over there, and I've quoted you many times.
They do. The thought of living in Los Angeles does not appeal to me, though.
Well, I could absolutely understand that, even though I know we have people listening to us in Los Angeles. One of them just texted me a while ago.
I like Los Angeles. I want to live there.
Well, one of them just texted me a while ago from Los Angeles, but they're fine. They're cool. They get it. All right, chapter 6, Care. The reason I want to start there, Matthew, is because Muslim Brotherhood, CARE is a front group from Muslim Brotherhood, and as you know, you're talking about now what is now moving out of the evangelical news circles and now into the conservative news circles, what James White has done with this Muslim Brotherhood guy. And by the way, he's tweeted today, along with Yasser Qadi, that they now want to go and do this again and give more information to the haters. That's what they're saying. So again, if you oppose them, they start using the same liberal tactics of the left, and now we're haters and we don't care about Muslims and everything. But this
Islamophobia, Islamophobic is what you are.
And you have a whole chapter on how that is used to silence critics.
Absolutely,
right?
It's like a variation on one of the most powerful ways of suppressing speech in America, and that's to call somebody racist.
Yes, indeed.
Now, sometimes people who are Islam skeptics, as I would describe myself, will also be called racist, but it doesn't make any sense because Islam isn't a race. There are people all over the world of different races who are Muslim, but it has the same sort of emotive power. And it doesn't even matter if it's accurate, because the idea is to shut you down. It is not it's to make you be intimidated into closing your mouth. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It's not intended to facilitate a rational discussion. It is intended to prevent a rational discussion. So
absolutely.
That's whenever you hear the word Islamophobia or Islamophobic, you should always immediately be suspicious, because almost certainly the person using it is trying to manipulate you into shutting up. That's it in a nutshell. How this so-called Islamophobia works. It's a
well, and it's very interesting because I put on my website this week at worldviewtimes.com an article about this Islamic jihad, or Islamic apologist, not jihadist, he may be, I don't know, but Islamic apologist in the UK who has, by his own title of his blog, that he is an Islamic apologist. And he emailed me to say, quit criticizing James White because he's helping us get into the churches and into right-wing America to fight Islamophobia. And so that's the word that was used. And so I guess if I'm not helping do that, then and by its very nature, I'm also taking part in Islamophobia. So that's already been used by me. And the graphic I used was...
Yeah, it's a way of positioning yourself in a debate so you can just strong-arm the other person without having to prove anything.
Exactly. And the graphic I used in the article was shut up, because that's exactly what they're trying to get me to do. Shut up. And that's what you just said. This is all about getting people to be quiet. Use a term, throw out the racist thing, and hopefully they'll be quiet. Now, we've got a break coming up in 60 seconds, and then we'll come right back. But the reason I'm interested in you talking about CARE is because this is one of these guys, this guy, Yasser Qadi. He is Muslim Brotherhood. But a lot of people don't know about CARE. Now, we've talked about Muslim Brotherhood and its founding and founders, and they're helping in the final solution. Tell us a little bit more about the Center for American Islamic Relations, or the Council on American Islamic Relations, please.
Okay, so that's what we'll do after the break.
All right. How can folks get a copy of the book?
Right now?
Well, you can start until you hear the music.
Okay. I wasn't sure how you're doing it. CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, is a front group for Islamists. It is pro-Muslim Brotherhood, and it's pro-Hamas, and all sorts of people associated with it have been charged with terrorism, facilitating related crimes. And it was founded years ago as a fake civil rights group. It claims to be America's largest Muslim American civil rights group, but it's really not about civil rights at all. It's about abridging everyone else's civil rights in order to accommodate Islamic aggression. Or you could even say, if you want to use it in a
Worldview Radio and WVW-TV is growing fast with numerous radio and TV shows we produce from our studios and we distribute. We just added 4 new servers to keep up with the demand from our audience. Therefore, on July 15th, our rates for new members to the Worldview Weekend Situation Room will be $10 per month, $99 a year, or $149 for 2 years. Current members are grandfathered in at their current price as long as they keep their account current. You get 4 clubs for the price of 1. Our Worldview Training Institute, you get the Situation Room, Worldviewpedia, and My Worldview. All the details are at situationroom.net/join. situationroom.net/join. There's now over $121,000 and growing in digital on-demand resources. Our TV show, The Worldview Weekend Hour, along with all the TV shows of our other hosts like Sharam Hady and his TV show, Usama Dakdak, Mike Abendroth, Mike Gendron, Tommy Ice, and more. You also get all the radio shows we produce. You also get transcripts, our Bible software program, Worldviewpedia, conference DVDs, and ebooks, audiobooks, and more. All the details, situationroom.net/join. Again, if you want to be grandfathered in at the current price, you need to join by July 15th, because after that, the price is going up. You can join right now at situationroom.net/join. situationroom.net/join. Thank you. Perfect. All right, got a great news program for you today with my guest, Matthew Vadum, someone I've quoted many times from his front page mag articles. Now he's got a brand new book called Team Jihad. We'll tell you how you can get a copy. I've been reading it all morning and marking it up. I could probably interview him 7 or 8 hours to get through this. It's not a thick little book, which is what I like, but it's so good, the research. I'm reading a lot of new quotes and new information I've not seen before. So he's helping us with more information, new information. Sometimes I read stuff and I'm like, yeah, I've already read that. But not in this book. I'm reading some new things in this book, which is excellent. And his website is bombthrowers.com. I've been visiting the website for a few months now. I know some of the guys that write over there. And he's got a brand new article up today, bombthrowers.com, by Dr. and Pastor Dr. Mike Spalding. He's a Calvary Chapel pastor, and he's really taking on what is the double standard among, quote, conservative evangelicals, end quote, and their defense of James White and his interfaith dialogue with Yasser Qadhi. He doesn't pull any punches, and he names names, and some of the names he names might actually really shock you and sadden you. And I highly urge you to go to bombthrowers.com, and you might want to mark it as a favorite and read it on a regular basis like I do. But I would urge you to get the link to that article by Dr. Mike Spalding at bombthrowers.com. Tweet it, Facebook it, email it, get it out there. Because, again, this is very instructive for us, because this is what I've been warning you about, folks, that the opposition and the defense of things would come from where we least expect it. Yeah, we expect it from the main line. Yeah, we expect it from the social justice warriors. You don't expect it from so-called conservative evangelicals. But, folks, that's where it's coming. And Dr. and Pastor Mike Spalding calls it out for what it is and documents the hypocrisy of it. And I think it's great that he's doing it because he's a pastor. So I think he's taking on some pastors and some elders, and he being a pastor and elder is a good guy to have take it on. Our news program today is about Team Jihad, this book by Matthew Vadum. Matthew, how do they get a copy of this book?
You can get it at on Amazon, and my last name is spelled Vadum, and you can get it at the Center for Security Policy website. You can get it, that's the easiest way to get it, Center for Security Policy, and they have a post up right now that covers the press conference we had introducing the book yesterday in the nation's capital. So you can watch, an hour, a little over an hour of the back and forth of the discussion of the contents of it, the basic concepts.
Okay. So they can download it there or get it at Amazon.com.
You can buy it, or you can download a PDF, an electronic copy of it for free if you wish. The idea is that Center for Security Policy, which published my book, wants it to get maximum exposure. So they're happy either way. As long as you read it, they don't care if you give them money for it. You can download it for free if you wish.
Wow! Wow! Excellent. All right, let's talk.
Center for Security Policy. Forget if it's a .org, but it's. I think it's pretty easy to find, and they also have their radio program. Their website is easy to find. It's called Secure Freedom.
Excellent.
So
before the break,
we were very active Facebook page. If you type in Secure Freedom, it should take you right to it.
Excellent. Before the break, the music started, and you were saying that CARE is painted as something that it's not. Can you pick it up right there, please?
Sure. Council on American Islamic Relations depicts itself as a Muslim American civil rights group, but it is nothing of the sort. Muslim Americans aren't persecuted. To the best of my knowledge, they've never been persecuted in America, even after 9/11, when Muslims, devout Muslims, flew planes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and crashed in that field in western Pennsylvania. I think every murder is not good, but I think there's like one or two incidents in total in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. So it was pretty isolated, and Americans think of themselves as a fair-minded, tolerant people, which is why they're so easily tricked about the nature of Islam, because they regard it as a religion, and one can argue about whether it actually is a religion. I'm not here to settle that question today, but people want to think of themselves as being fair-minded and open-minded, and not discriminating against specific religions. So our side has a bit of a disadvantage right there, because Americans are inclined to not want to go along with criticism of Islam. Or even with an honest examination of it. People just project their own sort of ideas about what it is, a big happy smiley face picture, onto a religion that they really know nothing about. And it's, the more you study Islam, and this is just my personal opinion, not reflecting any group I'm associated with, that it is, the more you look into it, the scarier it is.
Yeah, it is. In fact, in your book, you detail in your book.
People need to know about it. And this is not to say Muslims are bad. Muslims are awesome. There's lots of great Muslims. The problem is Islam.
Yes,
Islam
we've often said that. We've often said that. There are moderate Muslims, but there is no moderate Islam.
Too many Muslims take their cues from the real Islam, from the Quran.
In your book here, you state that the FBI has been told, and I don't know if this has stopped during the now Trump administration, but the FBI were CARE, was a front group from Muslim Brotherhood, which dates all the way back to the Holocaust and working on the final solution with Hitler. CARE, a front group from Muslim Brotherhood, they were doing the sensitivity training.
SS divisions composed entirely of Muslim volunteers working for the Third Reich.
And the Muslim front group CARE was allowed to do the sensitivity training for the FBI, and they were told that it doesn't matter that they have some elements that are pretty extreme, just work with them anyway. That's what you write in your book.
Just work with them anyway, and don't worry about female genital mutilation, for example.
Wow.
Don't worry about the things that these people believe in, and that a large enough percentage of them act upon, to be concerned about. Don't worry about that, they say. Be tolerant. Don't be a racist. Don't be an Islamophobe. Don't otherize them. I love that leftist phrase. Don't otherize them. Don't make them feel like outsiders. So
let's go to page 9.
CARE has been doing that for a long time, and they convinced, at least for a time, I think the policy has since been reversed. They couldn't take into account, somebody's association with the suspected terrorist group when the FBI was conducting an investigation. I believe that was exposed in something called the Touchstone document, if memory serves. And they, they're just saying you shouldn't be allowed to go after somebody to investigate them because they're Muslim. That you just have to sit back and wait until they go and blow up some people at a shopping mall or what have you. So the idea is to discourage law enforcement and the FBI in its intelligence gathering capacity from doing its job.
I was going to say let's go to page 9, but let's go to page 63.
85-year-old ladies, 85-year-old, Jewish ladies and Italian American ladies and whatever getting, body cavity searched by the TSA because we refuse to admit that the problem, the terrorist problem, is more or less exclusively a Muslim problem.
Let me jump in here. You're having a hard time hearing me. I think when I talk, when you're talking, your phone keeps going, and so you can't hear me trying to jump in. My audience is used to this, though. Let me jump in here. I was going to say let's go to page 9, but let's go to page 63 of your book. I want to read what you say here. You say CARE has scores of left-wing federal lawmakers in its pocket. U.S. Representative John Conyers, Democrat from Michigan, the former House Judiciary Committee chairman, has referred to CARE's, quote, long and distinguished history, end quote. He wants to kill the U.S. Patriot Act, stop the FBI from profiling Muslim suspects in terror investigations, and criminalize, quote, disrespect of Islam. Matthew, criminalizing disrespect of Islam, if this goes through, you're going to be charged, I'm going to be charged, Usama Dakdok, Shahram Hadian, Jim Schneider of Crosstalk are all going to be charged. And by the way, I'm sure you're aware, we dealt with it earlier in the week, that the House and the Senate have now passed resolutions written by two Muslim organizations to try to paint as hate speech, criticizing a minority or having a bias against the minority religions. You're aware of those two resolutions that have been written by two Muslim organizations that have now passed, right?
I wasn't aware that they actually had passed. I know they were being talked about.
Yes.
But, that's just a scary example of how these people have been infiltrating the American body politic, and they actually have a lot of sway. Politicians from both parties are terrified of criticizing Muslim activists because they don't want to deal with the potential political blowback.
Well,
they're afraid.
You quote U.S. Congressman or U.S. Jim DeMint. U.S. Congressman Jim DeMint. He's a U.S. Congressman, isn't he? Not U.S. Senator DeMint.
Well, DeMint is if I quoted him, he's unfortunately I don't have a photographic memory. Senator Jim DeMint was a senator, Republican from South Carolina, who went on to
I'm sorry, not Jim DeMint. I'm sorry.
The Heritage Foundation after leaving the Senate, and then
not
recently
him.
was replaced.
I'm sorry, not him. I'm sorry, my bad. I read it wrong. Jim McDermott, Democrat from Washington State.
Oh, Baghdad Jim. Right. That's what they call him.
Okay.
The one who was an apologist for the Saddam Hussein regime.
Yes, same guy.
When America was at war there.
Same guy. You quote on page
Baghdad
63.
Jim McDermott, Democrat, Washington State.
Okay, you quote on page 63 of your book that he praised CARE this front group for Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist organization. Quote, I've always enjoyed being with people like CARE, me, really, to keep fighting. And I think that's why this kind of organization is so important for people to understand that you have a right to say whatever you believe. And I think you ought to exercise that. That's being a real American, end quote. You also point out in your book, we got a break coming up in 1 minute. You point out in your book that some of the radicals have admitted that America is the best place for Islam to come and take over because they can use our liberties to do it. And here is this congressman saying, America is a great place for you to do this, to exercise your liberties. So he's basically agreeing with them, this is a great place to come and take over.
Well, yeah. Well, if they can't take over, they want at least to make it, to use a term that's evolved over time, Sharia compliant. They want to get it to get society to a place where you can't do things that will offend Muslims at a minimum. Like, for example, look at let's give an example with Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, England. Okay, in Britain, they're not squeamish about female nudity. They put it in their newspapers. I'm not judging them, or I'm not condemning them or applauding. But this is, is pretty well accepted in their country. And so it wasn't even a case of nudity. Sadiq Khan in London banned ads showing women in bikinis, in two-piece bikinis, on the buses and and in the tube, the subway system there. And this is
so that's already Sharia compliant. Sharia. Yeah, that's part of Sharia. And again, they publish nudity in their papers over there, but not on the billboards. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. As you know, a few years ago, we set out to be the premier biblical worldview radio and television network. And as you know, today we produce and distribute numerous radio and television programs from our Memphis, Tennessee studios. Each week we spend hours filming, recording, and post-editing these programs to make them available to you and Christians around the world at absolutely no charge. Please remember that we do not charge any of these broadcast partners, and in fact, we cover their travel and lodging. These programs are largely made possible because of your partnership with us through your tax-deductible contributions to the Worldview Weekend Foundation. Then there's the cost of producing and distributing these programs. It includes the bandwidth we must pay for that our app, our Roku channel, and our website consume each time you watch one of our programs. We also have the cost of our computer tech, server administrator, servers, backup servers on the cloud, video player that streams each program, that's a monthly fee, flying our broadcasters in to our TV studio in Memphis to film and paying for their lodging and then flying them back home. So I'm coming to you today with a very special request. Now, if you're in a position to be able to help support this broadcast ministry and you're not doing so, will you please consider becoming a monthly contributor starting today? If you can't, we understand. But if you can, would you help out? We've spent years proving our commitment, ministry results, stewardship, and doctrinal faithfulness. Now our ministry is producing 8 television programs alone, as you know, not to mention all the free radio shows. So please let us know that we can count on you. You can set up a monthly contribution online at wvwfoundation.com, wvwfoundation.com, or you can send a check each month to Worldview Weekend, P.O. Box 1690, Collierville, Tennessee 38027. You can also call in your donation each month at 901-853-8792. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to tell you about a book that I've written called What Every Christian Should Know. In this series, I deal with major and essential Christian doctrines. The book, again, is called What Every Christian Should Know, subtitled Understanding and Defending Essential Biblical Truths, such as, why does God allow persecution for Christians? Did you know there's a providential purpose for persecution? Did you know it's the will of God that we're persecuted? How can you know the will of God for your life? In what ways does much of evangelicalism today promote white magic, and how can we avoid it? How can God use sinful man to accomplish his purposes without being the author of evil? How does Scripture show that people are not taking trips to heaven today? Why does it contradict the Bible to say that Jesus or angels appear to preach the gospel to Muslims? How can you help a family member or friend defeat anxiety and obtain biblical peace? Are predestination and man's responsibility contradictory, or can these two be reconciled? Is the 10% tithe a biblical teaching? I address these and many other essential biblical truths in this brand new book written for lay people entitled What Every Christian Should Know. It's about 260 pages, paperback, and you can order it right now at worldviewweekend.com/bookstore. The book is now out, and we'll ship it to you right away when you order it at worldviewweekend.com/bookstore. That's worldviewweekend.com/bookstore. Makes a great gift for someone in your life as well. worldviewweekend.com/bookstore. Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Our website, worldviewradio.com, worldviewradio.com. My guest, Matthew Vadum, author of a brand new book called Team Jihad. It just came out. His website is bombthrowers.com, bombthrowers.com. He's got a brand new article up there by Dr. Mike Spalding, pastor out of Ohio, writing about some of these pastors and elders that are defending what James White is doing, and he calls some of them out by name and shows what they have opposed in the past, and now says, if you're going to be consistent, how can you now defend this? I think you'll find it very interesting, and I would urge you to go there and read it at bombthrowers.com. On page 10 of your book, you start in, Matthew, on talking about how the left defends Islam and how the Marxists and the Muslims are merging. That's something we've talked a lot about. We've talked about it with our friend Jim Simpson in his book, The Red-Green Axis. The Marxists and Muslims are merging. But you talk about how the left defends Islam. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But you know, Matthew, what we're seeing now is people that brag about their conservatism on the right are now using the same liberal talking points, just repackaged for a religious community, to say why it is we got to do the interfaith dialogues with the jihadi, Jew-hating, Hitler-defending, Holocaust-denying, Muslim Brotherhood imams. In other words, the right some in the right have now picked up the very talking points of the left that are used to defend Islam.
Well, indeed they have, because a lot of the people on the right, a lot of the people in the Republican Party have been compromised. Even beloved President George W. Bush, after 9/11, despite all his great accomplishments early on, he was conned into saying things like, Islam is a religion of peace. Islam means peace in Arabic. No, it doesn't actually. It means submission or surrender, but which I'm sure you knew already. But a lot of people have been saying, for years have been saying this kind of thing, that Islam is about peace. And I just wonder, well, which Islam are we talking about here? The one that led marauding armies in the 600s, in the 7th century after the birth of Jesus Christ, across the Middle East, and mercilessly slaughtered all the people who got in their way, who refused to submit to Islam. It has always been very violent. I think there was a period, whenever it was, like 900 or maybe 1100, something like that, when Muslim society, kind of Islamic world kind of chilled out a little bit, and they got ahead of the Western world in terms of scientific technology. But that was it. They didn't keep up. So they're still back there in like the year 1100, stuck in their crazy medieval totalitarian world. They reject the modern world, and that includes Western society, which, as I like to explain to people, really it's not just Judeo-Christian civilization, it's Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian civilization. All these great traditions, these traditions of philosophy, of independent thought, of rational, debates and so on, these are all uniquely Western things, and they don't respect that, because Islam views the world through one way, and only one way is acceptable. And if you don't agree with it, then they will try to eliminate you, or if they can't do that, they will try and marginalize you, ridicule you, and try to encourage people to reject your way of thinking. So Islam is very aggressive, and I used a phrase earlier. They're engaging, and it sounds like I'm a leftist, but I'm not. there is such a thing as Islamic cultural imperialism. They are trying to spread their ideas in our free society, and at a very minimum, they want us to be Sharia compliant so that we don't do things that offend Muslims. And it's amazing that homosexuals who are part of the left-wing activist movement are aligned with these people. The gays would be the first people slaughtered, would have to have their throats slit if if a real live Islamic caliphate were to come into their country. So they're deluded, and they're endangering not just themselves, but the rest of Western civilization, in my opinion.
Yeah. You quote in here Lind, L-I-N-D, and I think many of our listeners know who he is and the books that he's written. And you quote him, and you say he wrote this: leftists and Muslims have a mutual short-term interest in keeping the leftist parties in power and a mutual long-term interest in weakening the traditional culture of Europe. During this third Islamic Jihad, the third Islamic attempt to conquer and subdue the West, leftists all over Europe seem to be opening the gates of Europe from within. Now, he wrote this over a decade ago. Quote, "You want to conquer Europe? That's okay. Just vote for us and help us get rid of capitalism and eradicate the Christian heritage of Europe, and we'll let you in. In the meantime, you can enjoy some welfare goodies, and we will ban opposition to this undertaking as racism and hate speech." End quote. Now, this was written by him, by Dr. Lind, William S. Lind, back over a decade ago, and he was saying this is what the leftists are doing by bringing the Marxists are doing, many of them, the socialists are doing, by bringing the Muslims in to Europe. He said this a decade ago, Matthew.
Oh yeah, he was quite prescient.
Indeed, he was.
You're right. There is a Marx-Mohammed pact that he wrote about, and there is, the idea is that they follow the old adage, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," and there's no greater enemy to Islamic imperialism than the United States of America, a country that fights wars, spends its blood, spills its own people's blood and treasure, and then miraculously withdraws from those countries and lets them be free. What country before, what empire or great commonwealth has ever done that before? It's pretty well unheard of. And so you can see why the United States of America would be the number one threat to Islam, because when push comes to shove, we're not going to put up with this kind of garbage. But along the way, you got to make Americans really angry before they rise up and do something. Which is probably why it took so long to get into World War II.
Yes.
Without going into too many details here and digressing.
Yeah. Well, you do a great job laying out Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground, the leftists, how they're working together. You lay out how socialism of the socialists and Marxists is compatible with Islam. You lay out the criticism of people like Ben Carson when they speak truth. You lay out how, again, this is used to call people racist. The arguments that are used to defend Islam by the left, which are now being picked up by many on the right. Then you quote on page 34 David Horowitz. Quote, "America has functioned as a prime organizing site for international terrorism because the liberties provided by the American legal system allow terrorists to travel freely, raise money, propagandize, recruit, and move men and money across international borders. Terrorist organizers, including the leaders of Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the Muslim Brotherhood, have all traveled extensively in the United States, raised funds, recruited soldiers, and sent emissaries back and forth across America's borders. This makes control of borders and other immigration issues a critical front in the anti-terrorist war." End quote. Matthew, I know of people who are imams, jihadi preaching imams here in the U.S., and they travel all over the world, going out of the U.S., traveling all over the world to go and share their beliefs and then come back here to the U.S. They speak at banquets raising money that ends up, according to numerous sources and reports, in the hands of terrorist organizations. They are totally taking advantage of our liberties here, and I don't know why we allow it to go on other than political correctness and fear of the media and being painted as a hater, when we have laws on the books that would allow them to be prosecuted for insurrection and other things to overthrow our form of government, not to mention supporting terrorism.
Seditious conspiracy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So when is Donald Trump going to get the Attorney General Sessions on prosecuting some of these people, and if necessary, opening up a military tribunal, bypassing these communist judges that sit in these black robes, and just take it right to a military tribunal and start prosecuting these people?
Well, I think that President Trump, from what I can tell, is quite serious in his commitment to protect America from the danger posed by a hateful foreign ideology, such as Islam. He has really got his plate full right now.
Yeah.
Though, like with the travel ban, he couldn't even do the travel ban. The judges kept putting temporary restraining orders against it, saying it's a Muslim ban, which it isn't. It just happens to be against 6 or 7 Muslim majority countries that have a lot of problems with terrorism. And it wasn't even a permanent ban. It was just a pause. So that was proposed so that America could, after the long nightmare of the Obama presidency, could take a pause and see what needed to be done in terms of fine-tuning America's immigration policy to make sure, not that no Muslims ever get in, but that terrorists don't slip through the cracks and get into the United States as they have been doing. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he is committed to that. But the opposition to him, even within his own party on Capitol Hill, has been fierce. It's been something to behold. So, he's not a miracle worker. I think you have to be a little patient at least.
Yeah.
and let him
work it out.
Give him some time to act. Don't expect everything. I think he's going to act, but it's not going to happen overnight. You got to be given some time, some leeway to get it accomplished. That's my opinion.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, the book is called Team Jihad, subtitled How Sharia Supremacists Collaborate with Leftists to Destroy the United States. The only thing I guess I would add to that, Matthew, is maybe how Sharia supremacists collaborate with leftists and some on the right to destroy the United States after the article you put up on bomb throwers last night.
There are. In the Team Jihad book, I talk about how, going back, I've been on a show many times, and a lot of the time he's right, and sometimes he's kind of out there. And, bipolar, for lack of a better term. But on this issue, he was ahead of the game. He was totally right. And people laughed at him when he started, a few years ago, when he started to come up with his, theory that the Islamic caliphate was rising again, after years of, dormancy. And he's totally right. And yet, at the time, he was ridiculed by establishment conservatives as a kook, like Rich Lowry, the editor of National Review, and William Crystal, and all these other people just depicted Beck as being out of his mind on this issue. And it turns out, on this particular issue, Glenn Beck got it exactly right. Islam presents a clear and present danger to not just the United States of America, but to Western civilization as a whole. And Glenn Beck, I salute him for having the courage to say that years ago and to withstand the fire from his own side, from the right, from opinion makers at some of these conservative think magazines. So, yes,
Matthew,
people on the right, a lot of Republicans are not, what's that expression? They're not down with the program yet.
Nope, they're not. Matthew, thank you for writing this book, and thank you for your generous time today, my friend. Have a great day, and I'm going to mention where they can get the book again right when we come back. So thanks for being with us, Matthew.
Well, thank you so much. Happy to do it.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, his website, bombthrowers.com. We'll be right back. Phone lines open.